Hello and welcome to the Center for LGBTQ and Gender Studies in Religion, or CLGS. My name is Bernie Schlager. I use pronouns he and they, and I'm Executive Director of CLGS. We're really thrilled to have you here today. And I will introduce our speaker, who is Maij Mai, and they are the coordinator of the Asian American Pacific Islander Roundtable here at CLGS. So welcome again. The title of today's workshop is Dancing Lions, Queer Asian Aesthetics, Ritual and Movement Building. A unique blend of martial arts, dance, and music, lion dancing is an Asian diasporic performance art, particularly known for its bold integration of color, movement, and aesthetic performance. In this online workshop, Maij will explore with us lion dancing's embodiment of queer Asian aesthetics, ritual, and movement building, and adopt this framework as a way of embracing the cultural possibilities of queer Asian existence within our faith communities and current socio-spiritual landscape. So we're really excited to have you here. Maij is coordinator, as I said, of our Asian American Pacific Islander Roundtable, is a Black Vietnamese bipolar trans non-binary queer person existing in and with beloved community in Baltimore, Maryland. Maij's formal education and training consists of a Bachelor of Arts degree in Sociology and Women, Gender, Sexuality Studies, as well as a Master of Divinity degree from Wake Forest University. A creative visionary, organizer, and liberation companion from the Southern United States, their soul work centers on bodies, voices, and the lived experiences of oppressed peoples striving to transform their imaginations and their worlds. So super excited to have you here. And let me just say a few things here. This event will be live streamed on Facebook. It is also being recorded for later viewing. The chat feature, however, will not be live streamed, nor will it be posted. And without any further ado, I will turn this over to Maij. Again, welcome to CLGS, everyone.
Yay, thank you so much, Bernie. Can everyone hear me and see me clearly? You can put like a little reaction emoji. Beautiful, beautiful. Hello, my name is Maij Mai, also known as the Majestic Maij. I am a caramel skin complexion, Black, Asian, queer, disabled, spicy person moving and breathing through the world. I have pretty gel X nails, a ring on my left hand, a black tank top, and a black cover for my head. And the reason why I'm describing how I look is because I want to offer visual accessibility to folks who might be listening to this recording. So I am going to share my screen because we love a visual. Yep, chat is here. So we're here. Welcome. Dancing Lions, Queer Asian Aesthetics, Ritual, and Movement Building. Y'all will know that I'm dramatic and I also love to emphasize. I also love talk back and I love engagement in ways that feel safe and comfortable for folks. Before we begin, we kind of already went through a huge bio of me, so I'll just leave this on the screen with the visual of my beautiful face. But it's important for y'all to know who I am. And it's important for me to name who I am because anytime I facilitate and exist in a space, I want to make sure that folks are aware of the perspective and the voice and the body that from which these stories are coming from. A couple of housekeeping notes before we begin. When I talk about housekeeping, I talk about Southern hospitality, and I also talk about Southern clarity and directness as well. So this is just a couple of like notes for folks to be aware of as we're in this space. Like Bernie said, this meeting is recorded and will be posted at a later date on CLG's website. There's a couple of interactive, reflective moments during the workshop session today, just for folks to be aware of engagement. We will also have some visual and auditory notes. There will be loud sounds, drums, cymbals, etc. It comes with the nature of line dancing within Asian culture, but I also just want folks to be aware because sometimes when I hear loud noise, I'm like, what's going on? Also a couple of like just community Housekeeping guidelines, challenged by choice, you are able to enter and engage space in ways that feel safe and comfortable for you. Establishing consent is a continuous and ongoing process. This means engagement with facilitators, means engagers with tech support, and this also means engagements with other participants in this space. That is just important to name because we are a new community and I don't know who does and who does not know other folks in this space. And so please be mindful and also please check in with each other as we go along in this space. We are setting the margins and margins in this space. That just means people have different identities, and sometimes that comes with power dynamics that are always at play in our interactions. Record keeping in the chat, taking turns in the stack. This essentially means like we do have a chat feature. Folks are welcome to respond in the chat feature at any moment. If you hear something you like, you can quote it in the chat. That's just a great visual for other folks to see. And then the other part means taking turns in the stack. There will be moments where folks will be able to engage and like respond to me as well as we go along. And so when I say I've opened up the stacks, which comes from JT Perry, it just means that folks are able to raise their hand or just put in the stack, which means I want to turn. That means they can speak in the space based upon sequential order of who said stack first. Since it's a gift, trust is built over time. This just means to be as present as possible in whatever ways that looks like for you. We're taking that and holding it as a gift that you are offering to us that is very sacred and honorable. We're also thinking about trust is built over time. So again, new folks, new space. It might take time for folks to open up and that's okay. We're going to take our time with it and folks are able to engage as they see fit. Make the magic easeful. This comes from JT Perry, who's an amazing, amazing facilitator as well. This just means to take care of your body, honor your body, be present with your body, attend to your body's needs. And if it's too hard, ease up a little bit. Okay. And last but not least, we do have a safe word for this space. It is turtle. Turtle is a safe word. I myself, or Bernie Schlager, who was also here with us, we are facilitators of this space. And so if there are moments where you feel unsafe, you feel like you need support, you feel like you need some assistance, you can type the word turtle directly to either myself or Bernie, and we will try to make sure that you get the support that you need. Okay. Do we have any questions about any of these things? All right, so we're gonna keep it moving. A brief rundown of like where we start and how we end. We'll have an opening. This is the opening right now. We'll have a kind of opening case study where we'll watch a video of line dancing and just see and observe what we feel. We will then get into some personal experiences around line dancing, which is considered a sacred text for me. We'll get into the queer elements of line dancing and how this intersects with queer API liberation and freedom. And then we will get to resources, reflections, and also remembering what we learned along the way. And we'll have a closing as well, because we close out spaces. So before this video starts, I'm going to play this video. It will showcase Vietnamese line dancing in a Vietnamese community, Catholic community in California. So we will watch some video of line dancing. While we're watching the video, I would just invite folks to listen, observe, take in the experiences, note down anything that resonates or sticks out to them. And then we'll have a dialogue. Okay, there will be loud music, sound interactions amongst people in the video. It's loading. No one's seeing anything, correct? It's loading screen.
Not yet. It says major bandwidth is a little bit low, but maybe it'll come.
No.
Okay, hopefully Maij is coming back. Sorry about this. Let me text Maij. Okay, they're back. And Maij, if you send me the YouTube link, I could also display it since I have better bandwidth, I think.
Okay, great. Hi, y'all. I'm back. I got kicked out of my own presentation. How rude. Can y'all see this?
No. You just see your
Darn.
Facebook. If you send me the link, I can show it.
Okay. Let me send you this link then. You exit out. Hang on, let me start sharing my screen. Sorry for the technical difficulties, y'all.
It happens.
Okay, Bernie, I'm sharing the link
Okay, thank you.
within the chat. Okay, well, while we wait for Bernie to pull up the link, which thank you so much, Bernie, I really appreciate it. I do want to share a little bit about my personal history and background with Vietnamese line dancing. So when I think about interpreting my own life, I like to think about understanding my own life as a sacred text. That comes from womanist theologian Katie Geneva Cannon, who is now an ancestor. So I think about my life as a sacred text, and I think about where I first saw lions dancing in the streets, which was in Charlotte, North Carolina, at a small Vietnamese Roman Catholic church that me and my family attended for the majority, if not all, of my life. Um, I didn't always quite understand what was going on because I was really young and nobody really explains things to children. I also like did not know or have learned nor speak Vietnamese. And so I always felt like I existed at the outskirts of my church due to intersections with my Blackness and my queerness as well. And so while I did not completely understand the experience of lion dancing when I was like really, really young as a baby, I do know that it was impactful for me. Um, and Bernie says he's ready to show the video. He'll show a video so y'all can kind of get a taste to see why it was an impactful experience for me. And then I'll go into depth about what lion dancing growing up for me meant for me in my own development. Bernie, can you like skip to like 117? Great, wonderful. Even though it was like lagging a lot, I felt like I was watching like someone flip through a children's book. So it was still very enjoyable to watch and see. So now I'm going to um oh, now I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to skip that slide. Here we go. So, select and
Maij, are you still there? I think your low bandwidth is back. Oh, oh, I apologize, folks. Oh, I'll see if Maij can email me the PowerPoint. And again, if you're not able to stay with us, we will record this fully. Maij is sending me the PowerPoint, so I will advance it at their direction. Maij is trying, I apologize. I'm asking Maij. Oh, here we go. Hi, Maij. I think it still says your connection is low, but we can keep trying.
okay. I'm so sorry, y'all. Got Wi-Fi in my apartment, but it does not want to work. You can click on that link, Bernie, and it should take you to the presentation.
Okay, great.
Yeah, does anybody remember the question that I named? If not, that's okay. I'll repeat it. What did you notice or observe watching the video that we just watched? And the stacks are open.
I love the interaction of the children, and I was trying to put myself in that position of seeing that line as a real being.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked, it looked like there was a spotter behind them. And you could notice the amount of strength uh, that it took and trust with everybody involved in order to pull it off without anybody being injured.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, double IE.
I love the glitter. I am very much a shiny bitch. So I was like, oh, this is eating. I love just like the movement and the whirls. It was almost like hypnotic, and I was sort of like a visual stim.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, Pixel.
Yeah, sorry, my mic is kind of bad. I forgot to switch to a different mic. But so I've seen some line dances before as someone who's Chinese Burmese, and something that always gets me is the booty wiggling of the lions. They are like so chipper, and also like the masks. When I was a kid, I was really afraid of the people wearing the mask, but as I got older, I sort of appreciated, and like it took me a while to understand the aesthetics that come up in Chinese culture and how they depict people. So that was something else that like stands out to me.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes. Yes, I love it. Yeah, I was also like not sure what was going on, and the mask just like similar to like if somebody was wearing one of those mascot costumes, like the really big ones. Like I used to be terrified of those. And so like a really big fluffy dancing lion like in front of you makes you feel something in your body. Um I saw Vera De Vera, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, named in the chat. I'm wondering what significance the colors hold. These lions were a different color than Chinese lions dancing that I've seen. Um, yes, gritty would probably be scary to a kid. Absolutely. So yeah, there's just a lot of sensation and texture there. Um, Lion dancing does come historically from China, and I think Bernie, you could go to the next slide. Keep clicking through. Yep, keep going, keep going, keep going. Yes, you can stay here or go back to the other slide. Yes. Historically, line dancing does come from China, but there have been other different Asian diaspora communities that have taken on line dancing, such as Vietnam. And so when we think about line dancing, while it is specific to Chinese culture, there are also various iterations of lion dancing, so to say, when it comes to different Asian diaspora communities expressing this sense of, as quoted here on the slide, courage, stability, and superiority. And that's an interesting word that we will unpack and see how that translates over time. It is performed to chase away ghosts and evil spirits, which is why you'll see lion dancing engage with firecrackers as well as like other instruments such as cymbals, gongs, and drums. Something else that occurs during the performance is that the lion will mimic various moods and demonstrate different gestures. They're kind of like pop moves. Like if a lion was to like pop, lock, and drop it, like it's like quick, short, fluid movements that illustrate the gestures and the emotions coming up in the lion at the time. What's also beautiful about line dancing in general is that it is truly an art form that takes a lot of like skill and strength and endurance and flexibility. Most lion dancers exist within a troupe of lion dancers, consisting about 10 people. They usually do this in community because there's no way to gain that amount of strength and courage and stability to fly through lion dancing like that by yourself. So in regards to timeline, and time is a construct and time is fluid and cyclical within this space. Lion dances typically take place around the Lunar New Year, which we are actually rapidly coming up along. This upcoming Lunar New Year celebrates the dragon within the zodiac. Next slide, please. And so when I talk about lion dancing, I talk about like the historical sociological facts that I can share with you about lion dancing that I've researched, but I can also talk about that personal experience of lion dancing that really bubbles up for me when I think about this art form. Whenever I saw lion dancing as a kid, it happened, you always had to go to church first. Like that's what it was for me. You went to church first, you gathered with community, you would go to mass. I grew up Roman Catholic. And then after mass, like you would get like all this like food at the back of the church that all the grandmothers and aunties would make like in a little like crouched corner somewhere. And we would eat egg rolls and chicken wings and like steamed rice and pho. There would also be a lot of red envelopes of money and a lot of loud music. When I first saw lion dancers, you can skip to the next slide. Oh, that's me, hee hee. Next slide. When I first saw lions dancing, I immediately clocked the fur, the face, the jawline, the lashes, the mouth, and the color. Next slide, please. They were playful and they were curious, they were large, they were expansive. Next slide. They scared and delighted people, and there was a desire to engage with them, but also to run away. Next slide, please. When you saw lion dancing, you saw them within the context of the story that they were in. They weren't just lions that roamed the street. They always had a covering of lineage and they had a covering of where they came from and where they were going within a story that meant something to them. In those skits, people would wear a mask and they would have a staple of motion and they would try to tame the lions. They would try to feed the lions and they would like run away from the lions as well, with the lions chasing after them. Next slide, please. And then people would slip the red envelopes filled with money into the mouth of the lion, very much as the way you would at a drag performance, okay? And they would slip in the tools of money and they would grab the money and they would be pleased and they would like hop off with their furry lion audacious selves. Next slide, please. And so when I think about my first time witnessing lion dancing, I also think about the first time I witnessed queer Asian audacity, the first time I witnessed voguing, the first time I witnessed the most melodic and colorful outfit ever in my entire life. Like the first time I realized that I too could be a dancing lion and that I too could take on color, shape, and form and different fluid movements with my body. And it is because of who I am and how I've been shaped and the experiences that have grown inside of me, impacted by what I witnessed within lion dancing. It is why I come to understand lion dancing as a part of the queer aesthetic, ritual, and movement building that happens for API folks today. Next slide. Next slide, please. So we're going to explore what aesthetics, ritual, and movement building from a queer API perspective can look like with the model of lion dancing. When I talk about aesthetics, I'm talking about the performativity and not the way in which people talk about performance as like a fake way of showing up in the world, but performance as in, I know my body has motion and action, and that those motions and actions elicits an ethic and a response from the rest of the world that I desire or don't desire. I'm talking about the artistry and the dance and the music and the design and the colors and the sound that evoke particular narratives and frameworks for living. When I talk about ritual, I'm talking about the spiritual elements that are put into practice in the negotiation of spiritual cycles and connection with self and others. And then when I think about and talk about movement building, I'm thinking about embodied and collective motion with one another. I'm thinking about the living together. I'm thinking about the tending that we do together on a socio-spiritual level. Okay. Yes. I want to pause and acknowledge the chat. There's a quote about the desire to engage, but also run away. Yes, closest friends, being queer and trans in a lion dance troupe. I love that so much. I love the lived experience in the sacred text there. And then artistry and dance and music that evokes narratives for the living. Absolutely, absolutely. So we're going to start with aesthetics, and much of the examination of aesthetics, ritual movement building that I offer here in this presentation comes from an Asian studies working group at Duke University, who have been examining minor aesthetics, particularly amongst the queer Asian diaspora. Next slide, please. So when we talk about aesthetics, outside of the performance and artistry of all, we are thinking about aesthetics as the mundane sacred, the sacred mundane, the day-to-day lived experience that people shuttle through, shuttling between the ordinary and the catastrophe and the labor of returning to the everyday, okay? The aesthetics of the everyday living. It's the way I move my hands. It's the way I take a breath every day. It's the way that I use the restroom every day, right? The aesthetics of my day-to-day and what my day-to-day looks like. Next slide, please. So here we have this cute little lion dancing little puppet, and we are just watching and witnessing the aesthetic performance of this little lion dancing puppet, right? On any given day, that lion could be me, hanging by strings in thin air. Listen, boogieing, like it's just dancing, it's moving, it's shaking, it's a grooving, right? When we think about Asian bodies within mainstream society, we don't often think about them doing these sorts of motion, right? In the world, we don't think of them as taking up space, as shaking their own core and their own rhythm, right? We can go to the next slide. And so when we think about the aesthetic performance of queer Asian folks in their freedom, the same way that a dancing lion would, a question that I offer to the group that we can ponder and reflect on is, what is your aesthetic? And how do you shuttle between the ordinary and the catastrophe and the labor of returning to the everyday? I know it's a big question, but it's just something to ruminate and think about. Does anyone have a response or a something they noticed about aesthetic in that kind of short snippet? And stacks are open.
I think I'm kind of in the middle of like catastrophe right now, so I like that you're delineating between the two. So the goals right now are drink water, sleep, and eat. You know,
Yes.
like and get everything else done. But those are the main goals. And the labor of every day, I'm still figuring out, you know. But I think allowing there to be space for for catastrophe, and to delineate between the two and not expect the everyday to look the same when you're in catastrophe. Like a lot of times I feel like these things are expected of me, so I just have to do them instead of being like, okay, I can let that go right now and just rest. So yeah, so that ceasing from striving, I think, is part of my aesthetic.
Yeah. We have Yulia and Bastet next, IE after, Bernie, and then Pixel.
Can people hear me? Yeah, I love this question so much. And all I really have to say is that I can't help but think of when I get up in the morning, and yeah, like there's like catastrophe I'm experiencing, but I get up and like I adorn myself, and I'm not going anywhere. We're just staying in the house. At most, we're saying hi to the cat outside in the neighborhood on the front porch. But we like get all dressed up and dolled up, and then all that only to come back into the house and put on PJs and then tend to my writings. And I just find that like really funny and really resonate with what you shared, Amy. Like, yeah, there's I just, in my own experience, I'm like, there's a fluctuation between, yeah, that I don't even know how I have the words, but that's my shuffle.
Yes. It is a shuffling, it's a back and forth. It's a constant back and forth. Yes, IE.
I think a lot about how I move through dysregulation and like trying to come back to regulation. I don't necessarily think about it through like aesthetics, but I think I should like that would be like, okay, I can make this a little queer, I can make this a little cunt, even in the midst of like feeling like I'm out of my orbit. Or I think about like how I make hot water. I drink hot water a lot, like every day. And I've been making a concoction of like crystallized ginger, black pepper, and honey, and how that has been really warming and sweet. And that's sort of been a little like reset moment. So even when I'm like, okay, things are going to hell right now, but I have this really lovely, sweet, warm drink. And sort of, I always keep my water by my bed so I don't have to like run to find it. And sort of that being the aesthetic in its way of like making the magic easeful, JTP. Also making the magic like within arm's reach. Like I don't have to run down the stairs. I don't have to like run to my desk in order to have something to comfort me.
I love this conversation because just admitting to the catastrophe of the ordinary is a huge step for me. And I agree, the only way to face it is by embracing beauty. And for me, it's like, how can I discover the beauty in my own body first, which is really difficult, and face catastrophe because I don't want to face it. And then I engage in all sorts of things to ignore it, which compounds it. So
Yes. Go ahead, Pixel.
Yeah, I guess something that is like sort of coming to mind is the like subliminal ways in which I sometimes realize or don't realize how shame shapes how I take up space and how I move through spaces. Um, and like as someone who has to sometimes go into the office, like I try to predominantly work remote because like not being perceived just sort of takes a load off the stress that I have for my day-to-day work. Like I often find myself feeling like I'm like cosplaying or like role playing someone who like has a functioning like is more functioning than I really am inside, like pretending to like dress up as like an office worker in a way. And it can sometimes be really jarring to like put myself in a depiction that I don't necessarily believes like captures me best. And I think a lot of shame comes with like being told that expressing myself even in the workplace is unnecessary, and sort of trying to think of like ways that I can counter that and like remind myself that if people don't like how I'm showing up to work, that's a them problem, and like if they're really giving me like backlash, then like maybe this is just not the place where I should be working, period. um and something else that like comes to mind is like thinking of when I'm at like cultural events, and like sometimes like there's a friction in wanting to show up to cultural events wearing traditional clothing, but a lot of that traditional clothing being gendered. So thinking about how can I take this traditional clothing and honor my ancestors in a way that better expresses other ancestors who probably came before me and experienced similar things, and try to come through and like represent this culture in a way that affirms that history as well.
Mm. Such juicy shares. I just want folks to just marinate and all that. One image of queer Asian aesthetic fluidity, and look what bubbles up for people. Um, and yes, there is a really strong correlation in like sonic sound to shuttle and shuffle. Next slide, please. So now we're gonna get into ritual. Ooh. Here are some wonderful quotes from this article again, from that working group that has been using performance art as a way of exploring queer API power and identity and aesthetics. You are not disappearing, you are blending. You are not dying, you are becoming permanent. Okay. This line is a door, an opening and a closing. Whatever you choose, whatever you need. And this comes from a performance piece called Zana and Iswa by Chanel Matsunami Govro and Jay Kiesel. And then here's a quote from Dr. Athia Choudhury. Sorry, my dog is like pressing up against me. A cycle of care, of holding and healing, of being healed and being held. Okay. So ritual as a constant reoccurrence. You are not disappearing, you are blending. Ritual not as like you are not dying, but you are becoming more permanent within the infrastructure ecosystem around you. We talked about an opening and a closing. You notice at the beginning of this workshop, I mentioned an opening and a closing. Whatever you choose and whatever you need, right? Acknowledging autonomy and agency. The ritual of autonomy and an agency, of practicing your agency in the world. And then what I love about this last quote is like a cycle of care, of holding, of healing, and of being healed and being held. Next slide, please. That's how I'll be shaking my head sometimes. There you go. Next slide. So, ritual. What is your ritual? How do you engage with a cycle of care, of holding and healing, of being healed and being held? I see Pixels put in the chat. It feels like I'm watching an animation and just makes me think of what if I was inside my animation instead of outside of it. Ooh, it's given breaking the matrix, okay? Any other thoughts or responses? What is your ritual? What is your cycle of care for yourself? feel like I'm asking people like, what wash cycle do they like put their laundry on? Like, if you were laundry, what would be your wash cycle? Yes, delicate.
Yeah. Yeah. Delicate.
Mhm.
Uh,
A gentle double rinse. Go ahead, Amy.
yeah, I am trying to get ritual into my life this year. Like, that's my goal. Um, because yeah, it's needed, right, for the cycle of care. And so one of the things that I started last year and will continue to do is just going monthly to a spiritual director, um, physically driving there and sitting in their space and letting them and their space hold me instead of um, doing it via Zoom, which I could do, but there's just something powerful about being in a space prepared to hold me, like a physical place. So, yeah.
Mm. Ah, my heart. WIE and then Pixel.
I'm laughing at the laundry because I was literally doing laundry at the beginning of this. Um, I was thinking of sort of many thoughts, but like emphasis in disability justice on interdependence and how part of that is like we all need care and we all can give care. And it's like figuring out and communicating what everyone's boundaries, limitations are, and like honoring, respecting that, and also that being very fluid. Um, and I was thinking about how recently I'm like, I need a prayer circle. Me and my homie just we need to get together on Zoom, on FaceTime. We need to pray. Because I feel like spirituality sometimes can feel like a chore, which I really, really dislike. So I'm like, okay, weekly, I need to refresh my altar. I need to give new water. I need to say these prayers. I need to sing these songs. And I want to try and like infuse more fun and play into my spirituality, which has always been like more possible with other people. Because it's like, okay, maybe we giggle and we sing like a church song, but we change up some of the pronouns. So God isn't like the he, him patriarchal God. God is she, her, she, they, no pronouns, name only. um, and sort of redefine what spirituality can look like, especially as someone who like grew up Christian. There's so much like compulsion and order that is emphasized in being like quote unquote a good religious person that I'm still like trying to untangle myself from.
Mhm. Mic drop. Pixel will be the last for this particular question.
Yeah, when you first like brought up this question, I definitely felt like, ooh, complicated. But then I sort of like thought of it more, and I have like very specific morning routines that I have created for myself that, after like I may be away from home for a bit, like I always come back to being able to feel a bit more grounded when I do those morning routines. And it involves stuff like, yeah, making tea for myself or like taking a picture of the sky every day and making sure that like I appreciate the world that is outside as someone who ends up spending a lot of time inside. I do like I've had like a long like relationship with care work, primarily being something very external and being someone that people come to for care, and something that I have been working on and chatting with my friends about, one of them who is in the chat, was the idea of flirting with myself and the idea that I can be my own boyfriend, because I realized that, I'm always very eager to give myself up in so many ways for others, but I find it so intimidating to bring that back to myself. And so I'm trying to learn how to treat myself as a very charming person again and like what like liberation can look like if I showed myself the same love I showed others.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Love that. Also want folks to just check out the stacks. Yes, tough. yes, I'm definitely tougher on myself than I realize. I feel that. I definitely feel that. Playing around with and replacing the term God with other beings, I appreciate as well. Like mushrooms, I do love mushrooms. Um, yeah, I'm going to grab my charger for my computer, alas. Bernie, you can flip to the next slide, which will have a video as well. You can just go to the video. The next slide, yep. Whew. Thank you, Bernie. Y'all see what that lion was doing in that video? That was me in my apartment getting that trigger. So my computer wouldn't die. See, literally me hopping from stone to stone. You can actually, can you go back to the slide before, Bernie? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, from this performance piece at Duke University, quote, "You looked just like me, but altered by time, not age, but a timeline, your face blank and unshakable." And then some quotes from Dr. Thea and Chaudhuri and Ling Yu Peng. "Kinship formations as a kind of politics of abundance and a practice of imagination of the wild, limitless future for our personal and collective living," right? Yes, it's giving very much so, Coco, Year of the Dragon, okay? Next slide, Bernie. We can go back to the video. So here, like, y'all witnessed and y'all saw the abundance, the limitless imagination, the embrace of the wild and claiming the wild from a space not tainted by colonialism and imperialism, right? There's a lot of nuance and complexities to histories. There's a lot of ebbs and flows to the harm and the power that folks have and don't have at any given moment. Collectively, movement building is an arrangement of the different muscles and the synapses amongst different people trying to strengthen the formation that they hold together so that they can make leaps and bounds in a really, really tough world, right? Next slide, Bernie. And so this last and final question, we won't expand on it too much. We actually won't expand on this one, I'm so sorry. Expanding it with your spirits and your friends. But I do want to name a question for y'all to reflect on is, who do y'all build movements with? And how does your kinship formation, the formation that you make with your kin, both human and non-human, how does that reflect a limitless future for our personal and collective living? Okay, next slide, please. So I just want to offer some closing queer line dancing paradigm shifts as we take into account the aesthetics and the rituals and the movement building that occurs within line dancing and how that reflects and refracts queer Asian existence. We are moving away from queer Asian bodies as a fixed aesthetic and adornment, right? We're moving towards queer Asian bodies as ever evolving beings that create and shape aesthetic. They are creators. They are not just the created, okay? Queer Asian bodies as, we're moving away from queer Asian bodies as folks, as fragile, porcelain, and passive, and we are moving towards queer Asian bodies as boldly colorful and like porcelain, if it's broken, it's sharp and it can cut you, okay? Active participants in living. Active participants. Kirby with the knife energy. That is exactly it. Kirby with the knife energy. Um, I also think about I'm a Cancer, so I think about the GIF with like the crab holding the knife and running around the hallway. Um, exactly how do we express ourselves as Black / non-Black Asians? Coco, do you feel empowered to elaborate on your question just a little bit?
Oh, I was just saying specifically, like I'm looking at the queer line dancing chart that you put up, and it just has me thinking specifically not only as like a non-Black Asian descent person, but also as like a Negrito Aboriginal Asian person. Like, how does taking agency and autonomy of my body, right? Like, how does that even work in a world where I'm not seen as an Asian person, even though that is my heritage? That's what I grew up in. I know who I am. My ancestors are the oldest people in Asia. But and also like, how do I also take control of my body and my narrative and my movement when we live in a world where people who are of any Asian ancestry is fetishized, any people of like Pacific Islander descent is fetishized. What does justice look like for people who don't necessarily fit a specific narrative of Asianness? Um,
Mhm.
how do we navigate the world when we are told that we want to be anything but Black? And it's like, that's not what's going on. That's not what's going on. Like, I am definitely proud to be Black. But just thinking about that in terms of like, and what is it, and also thinking about like the conversation of Asian futures without Asians, how people love
Mm.
to take on Asian culture, Asian spaces, Asian movement, Asian magic, Asian medicine, Asian identity. You know, I could go on for days, right? How does indirect and purposely plans out xenophobia, anti-Aboriginal, anti-Pacific Islander behaviors, how does that impact us in a world where people want to be Asian without Asians, regardless of complexion, regardless of race, regardless of ethnicity, nationality, etc., nation, because that's also another thing, you know, versus tribes. So it just has me wondering, like, how do you move through this world? Because I'm constantly told as a Negrito Aboriginal person, because people don't even know about us, like, people are also constantly telling me, like, oh, you just don't want to be African. And I'm like, I'm definitely African. But I think about that, like, how am I going to be able to freely move in my body when I feel like there are parts of me that are feeling erased, and there are parts of me that feel like get fetishized by people, whether they know it or not, or parts of me that I feel like I have to hide because people just don't understand, you know?
Mhm. Whew. You bring in the tea, okay? And the tea is hot. The tea is hot. And I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I'm gonna answer all the questions. I think actually like it's really important that we sit with it and that people sit with the discomfort or whatever other feelings and sensations come up for them when they're thinking about these identities, these foldings, these infrastructures, these formations, these different matrices upon matrices upon matrices, right? Um, Sometimes I just start by trying to move. Sometimes it doesn't work out very well. Sometimes I'm like, oh, my hip just cracked 5 million times and we're going, right? Um, the making of the meaning, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. But this is where I'm exploring. And this is where I invite other people if they feel compelled to explore with me. Um, but you know, I'm glad that was all recorded, Bernie, because child, like I feel like we're gonna sit and ruminate on this recording for a very long time. So I very much appreciate you bringing that energy into that space. O'Shea? It is 5:02. Bernie, can we stay on for like until 5:10? Since I was like, you know, out in the vortex for a couple minutes, folks are welcome to leave as they feel comfortable. I just want to just stay a little longer because I want to make sure I close the space out well, okay? We can go to the next slide. Mm. Yeah, I was working on this presentation earlier and I was like, I gotta bring in the homies. So I want I might not be able to answer all of Coco's questions, and that's something that we're going to be continuing to sift through as we engage and build community with one another in whatever spaces we decide to build community with one another in. I do want to leave with some muses, some inspos who are constantly shaping and bending time and space as queer Asian folks living and breathing in the world and just trying to figure out like what is going on. Okay. So this is my friend Tigris. These are all drag performers of folks of varying Asian descent, diasporic communities from New York City. At Year of Tigris on Instagram gives us an example of queer line dancing as bold, audacious, colorful, and expressive. Very expressive, very kind. I just wanted to put in some things in here, okay? Next slide. And then we have at Miss Mamshi, another beautiful queer dancing line in action, showing us what it means to be big, tall, spacious, and direct with our time, body, energy, in our space. Bending time and space, making time and space, being the time in the space, right? Next slide, please. We have at Konica Peach, who exudes queer line dancing as intimate and real and intentional performance, okay? Everything is clear there, right? It is the gaping in the mouth of a queer lion in which you see there's someone I'm familiar with, there's someone that I'm intimate with, there's someone there who wants to be witnessed and seen. So there is a really beautiful uncovering that also comes with these aesthetics, these rituals, and this movement building. Next slide, please. We have queer lion dancing as binary breaking and spiritually transformative at Kekawai's, another beautiful drag performer in New York City. I love this kind of like split of the leg here. It's almost like skywalking, right? Skywalking in time and space. It reminds me of the video we watched earlier of dancing on those pillars, in which it kind of almost feels like in this world, like I'm dancing on glass often. In a stiletto. Yes. Next slide, please. And then last but not least, queer line dancing as collective work, expression, and world building as well. Again, what I named earlier with line dancing, line dancers often exist in troops because it's really hard to do a performance and to be in that space by yourself as one person. Each lion usually has at least 2 to 3 people in them. And so this is a flyer from Vuvia Fest, which is happening in New York City soon for the celebration of the Lunar New Year. Next slide. These are my resources because resources are important to me. I put my own sacred text living in stories because I am a sacred text and I am a resource. And you can exit out of the presentation, Bernie. And folks, that concludes our time. I invite folks to take in what they need through breath and exhale what they don't through breath as well. Any final questions or thoughts? I know it was a brief time. I know we had a lot of internet mishaps, but we made it and we're here through the shuttle. And then any final words from Bernie as well.
Thank you so much, Maij. Thank you everyone for being here. Let me just invite you, if I can get this all shared, et cetera, et cetera. 2 weeks from today, can you see my screen? I don't know if I'm sharing. 2 weeks from today, we have a discernment for queer Christians. Catherine Davilo has written Group Discernment Boot Camp. And then we also have, if I can find it. Oh, somehow I missed it. But just to invite you to our main lecture, which will be with Professor Menendez Antuña. Why do biblical interpreters hate sex so much? That's in April. And we post stuff on our website, Instagram, and other socials, so you can see what we're up to. And thank you again, Maij, for a really, really great workshop. Thank you,
Wonderful.
everybody. Thanks for being here.
Have a good day, y'all.